yearn and strive for government, protecting our liberty.
Good evening and welcome to Your Right to Know by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. My name is Mary Lotze and I will be your co-host for this evening's show. Joining me in co-hosting duties is my friend and cohort on the FRCC, Roy Landry, and our very special guest tonight is the High Sheriff of Worcester County. We affectionately refer to him and professionally refer to him as Sheriff Lew. Thank you so much, Sheriff Lew, for joining us this evening on our show. And I know you have a ton of stuff to tell us. We have a lot of things to ask you, so we are going to dive right in, if that's okay with you.
Sure, Mary, I just want to say to you and Roy, thank you for having me on Your Right to Know, and I'm looking forward to a show tonight, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. We're going to book you before you leave. One of the things I want to start out with is just sort of a little overview of why we've asked you to come specifically. When you ran for office of sheriff 4 years ago now, you have a 6-year term, you ran against a very well-known, very well-respected public servant. You were probably a more obscure state representative in your district. And yet you had a vision. Your vision of where you thought the county sheriff's job should go apparently resonated. Some of the things you talked about was that it's not limited to the 1,200 inmates in the Worcester County County House of Corrections. Yep. You said the sheriff needs to be in the communities, working with children, working with teenagers, working with the people, working with seniors. In getting together some of the facts, we do a little homework, Roy and I, for the show. One of the things I looked at was actually your campaign promises, and I compared them to where we are today, 4 years later. And to tell you the truth, I was awed. Very seldom do we see a candidate who becomes the position, who gets the position, and actually can turn those promises into reality to the max. So this is one of the things that Roy and I would like to talk to you about. We're going to start out just by looking at some of the areas that we know that were kind of highlighted for us. And with that said, I just want to ask you very briefly to tell our viewers, what does a county sheriff do? What is the position?
Well, first I just want to thank you for those kind words, and I do take great pride in the fact that when I do walk the streets up in here in Fitchburg and in Worcester and throughout the county, people do come up to me and they say, you know, I'm proud I voted for you, or I'm glad you're our sheriff because you're one of those people, and they make it seem like a big deal that you actually do what you promise you do. I think that's a sad statement on today's American political structure because I don't know any other way. I mean, you should run for office saying what you're going to do, and then if you're fortunate enough to be elected, you should do it. And that's all I've tried to do. I did talk about many things I do as sheriff, from removing my name from the vehicles, you know, through raising the hiring standards, to not taking money from my employees, through being in the schools and the communities, and working to help keep Worcester County a better, safer place. And thank you for referencing that. But the sheriff really has, and we have an essence of our job, which is to run the Worcester County Jail and House of Correction. There's about 1,050 people in that jail and House of Correction today. Now, just so you can clarify this, a lot of people don't know this. The difference is this. The jail is for people who have been held, they've been arrested, but they've not been sentenced yet. They're awaiting trial. They're in jail. There are some murderers, rapists, sex offenders in there. There are people waiting to go to state prison, and there are people that are held in our jail for years. There have been people sentenced for murders that have been in 6 years in our jail. We also have the House of Correction. Okay. Just to break it down, about 50% is in each. The House of Correction, and as my pastor said when I got sworn in, he said, may it truly be a House of Correction. I've tried to make sure, especially the House of Correction, where the average sentenced inmate serves 9 months, that we use that time to give them an opportunity to turn their lives around. And the biggest way to do it is to start with programs on drugs and alcohol, because 90% of those inmates are in there because of addictions to drugs and alcohol. So the sheriff runs that jail and the House of Correction, But I think you can be so much more than that, and that's the unwritten part of the job, and you can go into the community, you can go into senior centers, schools, and work on different things. So the essence is the jail and house correction, but you can also do a lot more, and I've tried to do both.
Roy, why don't you?
Well, I know you do a lot of work with the community, and you promised you would. And I want you to tell us about that community outreach program that you have.
Right.
And I want to know, does Fitchburg take advantage of it?
Yeah. Well, we have the community service program, which is the inmates working in the communities.
Right.
You know what I found when I started to get to run the jail, and I saw the need as a state representative before, that our communities don't have a lot of money right now. They could use help with projects that they can't do anymore because they don't have the money for it. So I thought, well, I'm sheriff. I've got 1,100 inmates up in that jail. I'll bet you we could take a good 25 or so, put them to work in the community every single day, doing work for the people in Worcester County. And it's a very interesting program because I took the program which existed, but it was small. We tripled the size of it since I've been sheriff. Today we have 25. Today we had 25 inmates go around Worcester County. They will work on any nonprofit. They will come out and do free labor for you. And in the 3 years I've been sheriff, we've saved over $4 million for nonprofits. And if anyone's watching this right now, all they need to do is write a letter to the Worcester County Sheriff, to me, Lew Evangelidis, and just say, put it on the letterhead of the nonprofit. It could be a school, it could be a town hall, it could be a little league, it could be a church, doesn't matter. If you're a nonprofit and you need help, we'll send an inmate crew up to, it'll be supervised.
Yeah.
These are our best inmates. These aren't the violent offenders. These
Right.
people are, I can trustworthy. I can put them out in the streets, supervised, and not be fearful that they would ever hurt anybody. But not only did we save $4 million, Roy, I'll tell you what I love about this program the most. I've never seen anything like it in government. This is a program that has saved the citizens of Worcester County $4 million. Fitchburg, for example, where we're sitting right now, we've saved over $140 million for the town of Fitchburg in this area by working with the town hall, with the fire department, graffiti. We started a pilot program to remove graffiti at Cleghorn. We've done schools, veteran centers, Cal Ripken Little League. You name it, we've done it, and we'll do more. But this is the greatest part about that program, right? This program will take inmates, and I'll tell you how it works. I'll send 5 inmates out in a work crew, supervised by an officer, and they'll go out into a town hall or a ball field and they'll clean up. And you know what I hear when I visit? And I visit these sites a lot. I always hear the same thing, Roy. It's incredible. The person who we're doing the work for, the organization, will say, Sheriff, thank you for bringing this crew out. They've helped us. They're respectful. They show up on time. They work hard. You've saved us tens of thousands of dollars. But you know what's amazing? I'll say to an inmate, what do you think about being in this program? And the inmate will say to me, one, he simplified the program perfectly. He said, Sheriff, I'm 25 years old. I never had a job in my life. I worked in gangs. I was in the streets, and I was a drug addict. Now I get up every day. I go to work. I have dignity and self-respect. And I was, Sheriff, when I get out of jail, I'm not going back to the street and gangs. I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to turn my life around. Now, name another program, Mary, that saves millions of dollars and turns people's lives around. Amazing.
Well, there probably isn't one, but that actually just brought up another question, and that is, we have, I think the statistics I read were 90% of the people who are incarcerated have a drug or alcohol history.
That's right.
Now, you promise to help people from the front end. We know children get into trouble, teens
Right.
get into trouble. It's part of living in society today. There's influences that impact on them that are negative, and they can get in and go down the wrong path.
Right.
So what are you doing as the sheriff working in the community to help that, to stop children from going bad?
Right. Well, my goal, Aunt Mary, would be to put myself out of business. And the only way to do that is to find those people who would be our future inmates and try to reach them in some way. Well, when you learn as sheriff that 90% of the inmates are drug and alcohol addicted, when you ask an inmate, what happened to you? How did you end up here? They'll start with, I started doing drugs and drinking when I was in middle and high school. So I thought, why don't we create a program that we can go to the middle and high schools in Worcester County and try to educate them, but in an entertaining way. I got teenagers. You don't lecture kids. So I put together about a 50-minute, 45-minute presentation called Face to Face. It's the only one in the country. We got it donated.
You started this
created
program.
this program. But you know what? We got a donated company out in Athol. When they heard I was running for sheriff, they said, Sheriff, if you get elected, we're going to buy you the technology that allows me to take photographs of young people and then to show what their appearance would look like if they became a drug addict. And it's stark and it's amazing.
Yeah,
well, we built a whole program around that, and we start off with an inmate sitting in a cell, and I've done this in front of over 75,000 students in Worcester County since I've been sheriff, and we're still going strong. And I've done it in as large of 1,400 students. I've done it at Fitchburg High School, as a matter of fact. We've done most of the schools around this area, as a matter of fact, and we've done almost every school in Worcester County, but we got to keep doing it because the problems still exist. But we do an entertaining program, Mary. I give you an example. During this presentation, I show an inmate in a cell, and I tell all the students when I start, they're like, why is the sheriff here? I said, I'm here because that guy behind me, who's in a jail cell, he can't be here with you today because he's in prison. And what did he tell me before I left him? He said, go talk to the young people and tell them, don't do what I did, drugs and alcohol.
Scared straight.
And then exactly, but it's an entertaining where I show films of Lindsay Lohan and Charlie Sheen and Eminem and even stories like Len Bias, which we all remember.
Yeah.
The myths of drugs are not the truth. The truth is bad, and this is probably the key to this program. Prescription drug epidemic is going on in America, and the young people don't think it's a real drug. So I'd say to anybody listening today, please be aware. If you've got children and grandchildren, don't leave those prescription bottles of pain pills around your house, because the young people go to parties now and they call them BYOP.
Yep.
It's not BYOB anymore, it's BYOP. Bring your own pills and pharmaceuticals. So I try to spread that message, Mary, because if we can reach one student or 5 every time I do it, if the only people that really end up in prison are people that make bad choices, and 90% of them were addicted and high when they did. So I've tried to create a program to address that. I'm very proud of this program. The response has been overwhelming. I've been, running a jail and doing programs. I'd love to do it every day. I don't have the time. I have to work at the jail. But I go out on average, we're doing like 1 a week or once every couple weeks. We'll go to a school and we'll put the presentation on, 1 or 2 presentations. But we've passed 75,000 students already.
Wow, that's amazing. The students like the program. What do they feel when they see their before and after?
Well, we take the pictures of them, and we show before and afters of people that we get photographs of people that are horrible. I mean, actresses and models who literally go from looking 20 to 40 in the matter of one picture that you see because of the drug addictions. But the students come up to me, Mary, after, and they say to me, Sheriff, you really made me think about taking drugs, and I don't want to do these things, and I never thought about this today. And my favorite part is that they line up sometimes, the young people, and oftentimes the administrator or the health teacher will come up to me and say, we've been here a long time, and this is one of the most powerful presentations we've had. I'm a natural teacher at heart. I really am. When I first ran for a legislative seat back in 2002, I passed the teacher certification exam, and if I didn't get elected rep, I was going to be a high school teacher. So now I can kind of do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
All right, now we got to talk about this iris scanning thing. It's one of your favorite things of a new gizmo.
Yeah.
We got, as you know, a child missing in our area.
Yes, of course.
We don't know if we'll find them. Is this going to help identify lost children and disoriented adults?
Yeah.
And you said in one of the things I read, it's better than fingerprints. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, there's a technology out there. Everyone's familiar with fingerprinting. We all, I'm not going to make any suggestions here, but let's just say perhaps in your life you've had a chance to be fingerprinted for any reason. It was the old ink. Well, those days are gone. And now you put your fingers on a laser, and it takes a laser shot of your fingers, which is computer generated. But there's a technology now that's 10 times more identifiable than a fingerprint, and it's called your iris. The colorful part of your eye is 10 times more identifiable than your fingerprint. And this is an interesting fact. The only part of the human body that doesn't change from the time you're really born until you die, and that can mean 50, 80, 100 years, are your eyes.
Yeah.
So your irises never change. Fingerprints can wear off. They can be altered. You can't alter your eyes. You can't wear out your eyes, your irises.
Cataract lenses, nothing.
Still doesn't affect it. So what we did is I wanted to get that technology to basically take an iris scan instead of a fingerprint. As a matter of fact, we're looking into bringing that into our prison because a lot of prisons are transitioning into iris scans away from fingerprints because it's so identifiable. Someone can give a name if they're arrested, but if you put your eyes in a scanner, only one person has your irises. We believe these irises will soon be used when you get money out of a bank machine. You won't slide a card anywhere. I could take your card, but I can't take your irises with me. If you put your eyes in the machine, it will know who you are. Well, we have the technology to do this, so we've been doing it with seniors since I've been sheriff. For 3 years now, we have registered hundreds, if not thousands, of seniors. Anyone especially who thinks they maybe could have Alzheimer's or dementia or just want to protect themselves, if you get your iris scan, it goes into a database, and then if you ever are disoriented and someone needs to find who you are, the local police departments are now and will soon be fully equipped with basically it's like a smartphone, and they can put it up to your eyes, take a picture, and know who you are immediately. So we decided, well, okay, now that we've been doing it with seniors, especially in light of what's been happening in Fitchburg, we recently decided to extend this to children. And there's a national database. We are not the first sheriff. Matter of fact, we're joining 1,700 other sheriff's departments in doing this. And it's a national database out of Arizona. This database will be scrubbed when you turn 18 years old. So it's just a chance, if you want, not everyone's comfortable with it, I would be, to have your children have their eyes scanned, enter them to a national database until they turn 18. But if, for example, if you were at Disney World or you were traveling and your child was, just wandered off even, and they were found by local law enforcement, they could immediately take a snapshot of their eye, and if they were in that database, they would get immediately who they are, your contact information. And I always feel, as a parent I did, anything I could do to enhance my children's safety or help them be identified, I would do. I'll never forget how moved I was the first time I met John and Maggie Bish. I met them in Ocam, my first run for representative, and what they were dedicating their life to, having children be identified. Well, I think this is the next generation of that, and I'll show you, it's just like this. It's attached to a computer, and it goes into a database. You don't have to touch the person. A child or anyone puts their eyes in here like that, takes about that, and they've scanned your eyes, you enter the database, we enter your information, your name, your address, your pertinent information, and it's sent right back to, as soon as we get back to the jail, we send the information off to the database and you're registered.
What demographic data goes with it? The name of
whatever you're comfortable giving us, but we generally ask for it would be the child's name, we have the eye colors and things like that. We have an address and we might have a contact phone number.
Just so if for some reason something terrible did happen and your child did end up missing, you could go back and get it. John Walsh, is he involved with this in the Missing and Exploited Children program?
I haven't talked to John about it, so I would not be surprised at all if he's involved in this program. It's national. I said it's being done across the country. There are millions of children already registered in this database. I just felt we have the technology. I invested in it when I became sheriff, and we were initially using it for seniors. I like to roll things out slowly. And I just felt, especially in light of what's been happening with children and missing children, we have the technology, let's expand it. So there was actually an event in the Worcester area where I got invited to come, and they said, Sheriff, would you like to have a table set up? It's going to be a lot of children. It was a winter festival. Well, I thought, why not roll the program out now? Just kind of let's start it going. So we did. We had a great response. We had over 100 children sign up that day, and now we're ready to expand it. So we have flyers, and we're promoting it. And if you want, whether you're a soccer league or a school or any type of club, we had some Cub Scouts walking through here.
We did.
Give us a call. We'll come in. We can register your children into this database and maybe, give you a little more sense of security.
And strictly voluntary.
It's pretty important for our seniors too. Because my father had Alzheimer's and he was lost.
My mother used to wander.
And they wander.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Roy, we have, I won't get into this today, but we have a whole separate part of our department called the Triad program where we work with the local police, the sheriff, and senior centers. And we have other things we offer, including we can help you get a bracelet that it's run by sonar equipment. Yeah. And there are so many seniors I've met who've told me, for example, a child, someone like my age would say, I try to keep an eye on my parents. I'm a little worried about my mother or my father because they could wander off. Sometimes you turn around, you go to the bathroom, you come back, they're gone. That's right. Well, if you have one of these bracelets on and you call us, we can help activate it. It's worked on a LoJack system. And we have cars driving around the county who serve process. Well, we put the LoJack machines in their cars. So if you call us within a half an hour, we're pretty confident we can zero in on where that person is. And you don't activate it unless you call us. So it's just a security. There's a small charge with that program. It's called it's a bracelet identification program. But again, just ways to help public safety. And that was something we probably weren't going to talk about, but we'll talk about some other time. But you're right on the money there. And this, as well as the bracelet program, and a lot of other things we do, including, we put the files for life on people's refrigerators. We provide those free of charge. We have cell phones that we will give to seniors. If people give us an old cell phone, we can give them to you because any cell phone can be used to call someone in an emergency, 911. Right. So we try to help public safety, Roy, wherever we can, but this is something I'm proud of. I think it's a great technology, and I guess most important, 10 times more identifiable than a fingerprint. Most people would never believe that, but that's your iris.
Yeah. Before we have to wrap it up, we have time for one more of the achievements that I'd like to talk to you about. And again, going back to that number of 90% of inmates come to you with a drug or alcohol history. This must be concerning to you in the prison. What do you do to help these people get help in the prison so that when they're ready to be turned back into their communities, they don't fall victim again to that same lifestyle? Well,
Mary, that's probably the most challenging aspect of being sheriff, is trying to break that cycle of what we call recidivism. 40-50% of people will recidivate. They will recommit crimes. And they all do it because once they get out of prison, within 24 hours, if they go back and they don't have the coping mechanisms, they go back to the streets, back to the gangs, back to the drugs, back to crime, back to prison. And I was learned as a young prosecutor that you don't just victimize one person, you victimize a neighborhood, you victimize a community. So I feel like our job as sheriff has to be do everything in our power to keep those people from getting out and recommitting crimes. So while we have them, I've really focused on these programs to help those who want to help themselves. You can't help some people, or some people haven't bottomed out yet.
They're lost
but there's a lot of people in there who have, and I want to offer them a real chance. I meet them halfway. It's a disciplined approach. But you want to meet me halfway? I'll offer you a real, we've got a new substance abuse director, a new education director. We've got a lot of new teachers and substance abuse counselors. But the substance abuse issue, we tackle head on. We give people real opportunities to deal with those addictions. And I started an anger management program at the jail. These inmates need to be given the support mechanism to get these things under control. And then we transition them out. Reentry services are huge for sheriff. We reenter them back to society, but we do it in a thoughtful way where we can get them the housing they need, or the medical care they need, or the substance abuse programs. In the end, it makes us all safer, Mary. I'm doing it for us.
Right.
But that's how we tackle it. We make sure people, when they're in prison, they sure as heck ain't getting access to drugs. I mean, they may try to get things in. No, every prison does, but they don't have it. So we use that time to give them a chance to turn their lives around. And you know what we find? If you give them a real program and you hold them accountable, there's a lot of people that do want to take advantage of it. So those are the people. And I signed some certificates today. And I'll go in myself as sheriff and hand those certificates to those inmates and tell them, congratulations, but you got a lot more work to do. But they're on the road, and I got to give them the respect because I want them to turn their lives around, because I don't want them to get out and commit crimes on us.
And I imagine some of these are the same people who are in these programs that are the ones that you can then place into some of your inmate work programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they have that desire to elevate themselves and to see changes.
Well, that's it, Mary. I mean, corrections is a hard business. I have such respect for the people I work with every day. We have, a huge operation of corrections officers and dedicated deputies and staff. We've got nurses.
Sure, nobody does it by themselves.
No, and it's tremendous. And the dedication I have of the teachers and the social workers and everybody. But, it's a hard operation, and I've got to be, the head manager of it, and we've got to hold people accountable. But the vast majority are tremendous, and we're all working hard. But it's like baseball. If you hit 300, you might go to the Hall of Fame. Well, we're not going to bat 1,000 in corrections, right? But we can do better. And that's our goal. And I mean, we could do a whole show on some of the other things I'm doing. Like, I've partnered with the U.S. Attorney and the DA's office for a special program on identifying high-risk inmates who get out. Well, we're now offering them bigger and better programming, but we're also going to hit them with a much bigger hammer if they screw up. There's a way to do it. We find out, give them 2 carrots, but a big stick. And there's a new approach. So we could talk all day, but to answer your question, drugs is the essence of why people are in prison. So we need to get people aware before they start doing drugs, and once they do, we got to try to program them, give them the resources to get off them and stay off them. It's not easy, but that's our job.
In the final minutes, 2 years, what do you have planned for 2 more years? I mean, you've got 2 more years left to your term.
Yep.
Some of these bigger visions again of, like you just mentioned, and
we've got so much work to do because all the things we're starting to implement can be done bigger and better. For example, I just opened up the first in the county's history. I studied other sheriffs. They have these support systems called after incarceration support centers. In other words, when an inmate walks out my door, he's gone.
Sure.
I have no control over him. That inmate can run back to drugs, crime. So I met some inmates at a prison setting out in Springfield. Mike Ash actually had a center set up in downtown Springfield. And inmate after inmate told me, Sheriff, this is why I'm not back in prison, because after I get out of prison, I could come down here and check in every day and be drug tested and be given programming. to make sure I stay on the straight and narrow. Well, we've started that same program here in Worcester County. I got one employee, a donated office, and we're going to make that one of the most successful after incarceration. So there's one example of something we're just starting, and we have high hopes to make it bigger and better. And we do run a COPE center right here in the city of Fitchburg, as a matter of fact, in Cleghorn, that is a real big part of diverting people from prison who have drug and substance abuse problems and giving them the controlled environment and regular drug testing to keep them straight and narrow. And that's right here in Fitchburg, because the need is here. We are dedicated to that office and keeping it going and expanding it and making it better.
Well, we've oftentimes said this is the fastest half hour on TV, and we're coming right down to the wire, but I'd like to give you 1 minute to just offer anything you would like to say to our viewers and to share.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me a chance to come on with you. And I just want to thank the people of Worcester County and the Fitchburg-Leominster area, in particular. I have a lot of friends up here. As sheriff, I've spent a lot of time in this community. It's a wonderful community. It has struggles and problems like everywhere. But you've given me the most amazing opportunity of my life to be sheriff of Worcester County. I treasure that opportunity. I'm blessed to have this job. I'm dedicated to doing the job the right way. And I just want to thank you for having me on here.
Well, thank you very much. And we definitely are going to have you back. We're going to schedule another opportunity where you can actually demonstrate the eye scanner, the iris scanner, and maybe I hear you have a dog, and maybe you'll bring your drug-sniffing dog, and that'll be a lot of fun for our audience also.
And he's a shelter dog, Mary. We saved him from a shelter.
And he's Sterling Animal Shelter, is that right?
Shelter. And he's one of the most sophisticated drug-sniffing dogs in the history of Worcester County.
Outstanding, outstanding. And to our viewers, again, I'd like to thank you for watching Your Right to Know and sitting in with the FRCC. As we leave you, we want you to remember that your city and town local Republican City Town Committee is your grassroots organization that supports and holds dear your constitutional rights and conservative values. We wish you would all join us or join in your community. And why? Because we always stand for freedom. Thank you so much. Good night.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might.